Good morning. It's March 5th. It's Wednesday. We're here for our regular scheduled county commissioner meeting. So at this time, I'm going to call the meeting to order and ask everybody to please rise and join in the pledge. All right, welcome. And a happy Ash Wednesday to everyone. So first item on the agenda is the approval of the agenda.
Mr. Chairman, I would ask for a slight adjustment to regular business item number 1 to add, it's a document number 24-2-00222-36.
Do we have a second? There's been a motion and a second on regular item business number 1 to add number 24-2-00222-36. And there's a second, so all in favor say aye.
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 The one and only change with the adoption of the agenda with that addition, we move down to the approval of minutes. Is there any additions,
No
corrections?
changes.
It looks good. Clerk of the Board's doing a great job on the minutes. We can't find any errors, so great job. Consensus approval of warrants and registers.
We have 3 this morning. Move for approval of salary clearing payroll and emergency management payroll in the total amount of $1,226,961.88 as presented, and note that it has been reviewed and signed by 2 representatives of the auditor's office.
Second.
There's been a motion and a second. All in favor say aye.
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 Move for approval of fund expenditures in the total amount of $627,953.01 as presented, and note that it has been reviewed and signed by 2 representatives of the auditor's office and the county administrator.
Second.
Been a motion and a second. All in favor say aye.
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 The fund expenditures. Okay. Move for approval of fund expenditures in the total amount of $650,000, $542.32 as presented, and note that it has been reviewed and signed by 2 representatives of the auditor's office and the county administrator.
Second.
Got a motion and a second. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Moves us down to public comment. Is there anybody in the room for public comment? As soon as he finishes, everybody has 3 minutes, so.
Commissioners, brought to my attention yesterday that you've placed on your regular business approval of settlements of 2 lawsuits presented by Jeff Briggs, Deputy PA. Both of these lawsuits, in one form or fashion, involves this office, my office. I have been assigned attorneys for both lawsuits, and I have not had any correspondence from my attorneys on the settlement of these, nor what they're about in its clarity. But if we're going to do this without an executive meeting so that all the players involved know what's going on, then I'll use the public comment times to make comments on both of the settlements, because both of them have sordid issues with them. One's a jail death, and of course the other is where 2 employees of this county in combination are suing this office to the commissioner's office for $40 million. I don't know how it's being settled. No one's talked to me about this. I have talked with the prosecutor. The prosecutor did send emails out saying it would be best to take this to executive session before you had a general discussion with it. But if you choose to have it in a general discussion, then I'm going to have input and say, because they impact this office.
Thank you. This is public comment. There could be no response. Is there anybody else in the room for public comment? Please come forward.
Morning, Commissioners.
Morning.
I'm here because there's an intersection there at Douglas Fruit, self-landing
Could you
intersection.
please state your name, sir?
Bruce LePage.
Thank you.
And that intersection works right now, but it's going to get real tenuous as the developments take place along the river. One of them's Randy Mullins is putting in a fairly large subdivision. There's another one going in just north of that, Rich Underwoods, and it's not going to end. And that traffic, if it doesn't take Broadmoor Boulevard, will be taking Road 68. Semi-trucks have to try to make that five-way, I'll call it a five-way intersection, because effectively traffic is coming in from all five directions. And I just want to recommend to the commissioners that you consider a roundabout there. I've gone to your Public Works engineers and spoken to them. I've also spoken to the engineers at the City Hall. Apparently it's a jointly held or jointly owned intersection. But I would recommend that you acquire some of that ground in there, and I would highly recommend a roundabout. I believe it would flow a lot better as time goes along than what it does now. Thank you.
Thank you. Anybody else for public comment? We don't have anybody on the phone. Okay.
Mr. Chairman, I just got a text saying that the YouTube feed is not working right now.
Can you check on that way? Go ahead.
Good morning, gentlemen. As we talked a little bit about last week, there is what's called the constitutional and ratification debates. And in those debates, our founding fathers, Madison and Jefferson and Hamilton, who was a real stinker, clarified what our Constitution stands for. In learning about that, I will be sending you a document. It is 74 pages long, and I know that is a burden on your time. But I would ask you to invest the time because the power is in the counties. The counties form this state. And when the counties come together, they inform the legislature and those who lead it how to represent the people. You are our first level of legislators. And then there will be some conference calls going over those ratification debates and what they mean to a resolution. And your resolution that you propose is a very good one, but it does need to go into a committee for constitutional compliance started by the people. That's what I'm working on. And then that strengthens you to authorize a committee in the county to continue studying this and come to a conclusion and give you the authorization and the wind beneath your wings to accomplish great things. Even as a minority in this state, it is the Constitution that is the equalizer, and we hear this, but we continue to see the degradation against our Constitution in this state, such as making it it didn't make it out of committee, but they wanted to amend our Constitution to protect abortion and gender mutilation in our state. And I just won't have it, and I think a lot of people won't. But it does call us to come together. And I look at you, Mr. Danzel, because you came together in your race and you made sure that somebody won the race, and it was at your great difficulty. But that's integrity, and that is leadership. And so we must stop the bickering, the separating ourselves from one another, and we must come together. So be looking in your emails, and I need your email. Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Anybody else for public comment? Nobody on the phone? Moves us down to the approval of the consent agenda. There are 5 items on the consent agenda today.
Move for approval of consent agenda items 1 through 5 as presented.
Second with discussion on number two.
Excuse me, number two. Okay, so we have a motion and a second for the approval of the 5 consent items with discussion on number 2. Go ahead, Mr. Baumann.
So, in the interest of simpler government, the current way that we do our boot clothing allowance, I think that it's something I visited with the auditor's office just a little bit about this and don't have a recommendation prepared, but I think that there's potential that we could relieve some burden on the auditor's office and make it simpler for everybody if instead of doing it the way we currently do it, if we would move towards a stipend, or that it's something that would be simpler, the policy of, you know, what it is and how it's worn and that type of thing would remain the same, but just to make it a simpler process. And so I don't think we're quite prepared to maybe do that yet, but I think it's something that we should maybe consider coming up, and that's my comment.
Okay. Any further comment? With no further comment, we have a motion and a second for the 5 items on the consent agenda. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Moves us down to public hearing. Resolution 2025-086, public hearing to consider the replat of Underwood Estates and final plat approval by Mr. Wes McCart. And at this time, I will open the public hearing. Go ahead, Mr. McCart.
So for the record, Wes McCart, Director of Planning and Building. What you have in front of you today is a application for a replat of the Underwood Estates that was adopted and recorded in July of 2024. At the time, there was a ditch that had water in it. There was some concerns in the health department that needed a sanitary setback of 100 feet. That ditch no longer exists, and the health department has agreed that setback is no longer needed. Their application is asking for removal of that setback on that one line. The SEPA document is not going to be changed. It will continue to remain in effect as it was originally issued. This simply removes that setback. It was published in the newspaper of record. We had no comments came in. I do have confirmed comments in the file related from the health department that we could go ahead and remove that setback. This is governed under RCW 58-17-215, and the commissioners have in front of them the ability to either approve or deny. This cannot be modified, just approved or denied. And we would recommend that it be approved. And I'm happy to answer any questions.
Thank you, Mr. McCart. Questions, commissioners?
Was the ditch, was that part of the irrigation district?
I don't believe, I don't know the answer to that. I'm sorry.
That it was obviously abandoned and it
Yeah, I
wasn't-
think there was some drainage issues that filled the ditch and the water was there. So I believe that we are able to alleviate those issues anymore. So
My understanding.
perhaps the proponent,
My understanding is this is
applicant
one of the
can answer.
ditches that the irrigation district put underground into a pipe and
Okay.
filled in.
That makes more sense, yeah. So it was piped underneath, it wasn't abandoned.
That's my understanding.
I have no further questions.
Well, this used to be all real irrigated ground. And through the history of the Columbia Basin, there was always ditches at the end of the field to get the water to go one way or the other. I suspect that's what it was, and now we're into pivot irrigation. Of course, this is having houses put on it, so there's no more longer a need for it, and it's been cleared up with the health department. So is there anybody from the public, as this is an open public hearing, is there anybody from the public that'd like to comment on this? Yes.
Morning, Commissioners. Peter Harpster, the applicant representative on this project. Just confirm that yes, that ditch was for farming needs, and it wasn't Skibbett's fault, but Skibbett did assist in the engineering design to relocate the piping parallel to Fraser Road across on the east side of Fraser. We can't just, that setback being on there was impacting the marketability of the lots that it impacts. And so we had talked with planning staff, and our initial thought was record some kind of a document that states that that setback no longer exists, that the health district signs off on, so any potential buyer pulling a title report would see that. But it was simplest and cleanest to just go through this process, record a new plat that completely removes it. So that's all I have. Thanks.
Thank you. So with that being heard, if there's no further comment from the public or from the commissioners, I will close the public hearing and entertain a motion.
Move for approval of Resolution 2025-086 as presented.
Second.
Been a motion, a second for Resolution 2025-086. Is there any further discussion? Hearing none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Moves us down to regular business. Request for consensus approval of settlement and acknowledgement of judgment number 24-2-00222-36 presented by Jeff Briggs. Mr. Briggs.
And good morning, Board. So I'm looking for some consensus from the Board to approve resolution of two lawsuits that were approved by the risk pool. The first is the matter of, it's the estate of Fabiola Valenzuela versus Franklin County. I believe it was Nicholas Valenzuela. This is a jail death, so there's various causes of action against the county. I believe it was a wrongful death claim, medical malpractice claim, 1983 claim. There's also a Monell claim, which is essentially that there was some sort of policy or practice that resulted in deprivation of constitutional right of this person, the decedent. And so all of those various causes of action gave rise to some sort of monetary loss to the estate and to the decedent's family. And our risk pool attorney, Ann Trevette of Keaton, Buckling, and McCormick, mediated this claim on our behalf, and we reached what's called a CR2A agreement. So it's a binding agreement at mediation for $2.5 million. I think of that, we would be out our deductible of $25,000. So that's that would be our deductible amount. So we would recommend approving that. Ms. Trevette did come down. She met with myself as well as Sheriff Raymond early on, and she's engaged in discovery. She's been great to work with. So I really appreciate her help in preparing and working on this litigation. So again, with the risk pool, just kind of giving an overview of that. The risk pool is sort of in the driver's seat with litigation. Mm-hmm. They are in charge of hiring the attorney, and then they can settle on our behalf. But we have the authority, if we so choose, to pull claims out of the risk pool, and that's why I'm asking the board for its approval of the settlement, because the board has the authority to sort of pull this claim that has been settled out of the risk pool, which, of course, I wouldn't recommend doing, but the board does have that authority to do so. The second claim is the Anderson-Burkhart claim. That's it's a defamation claim. I believe it also involved a tort of outrage. There may have been another claim as well. I believe it started out as a claim form that was for $40 million each. We did what's called a CR68 offer of judgment. The reason why you do those on defamation claims typically is to cut off attorney's fees, because it's a fee shifting mechanism for claims of that nature. If they don't beat your offer at trial, they end up paying your attorney's fees. So the offer of judgment was accepted, and the plaintiffs were able to take that and record a judgment against us, and I believe that's what was on the agenda for today. So along with that, you always include attorney's fees because defamation claims include attorney's fees along with them. So I think it was $5,001 per plaintiff plus attorney's fees, and that's where you get that figure. I believe it's $17,800 with costs. So attorney's fees and costs, you've got $17,800, and then you've got the $5,000 per plaintiff. Sorry. And then typically no admission of liability on our settlements. So I would just need a simple motion from the board to approve those settlements, and then I would let the risk pool know that we're in agreement. I believe they would invoice us at some point for our deductibles.
It says request for consensus. I don't think we need a motion, just the consensus to move forward that,
That would work, yes.
yeah, that's what it says, request for consensus. So I don't believe we need a resolution number put to this.
No, I didn't prepare a resolution for it.
So commissioners, questions?
So the settlement, or is it a judgment out of Walla Walla?
It is, right.
No further questions.
On the first one, this settlement, like you stated, if we were to pull that from there, we would suffer all the costs of attorneys. That's why we deal with risk pool, because we have a $25,000 deductible, which saves the county a lot of money. So I think this was a good move on that one. Regardless of what information we know about the family, this is the best move for Franklin County, I believe, is to take this request for the risk pool. So if there's no other questions or comments, I'm just looking for consensus. Are we all in agreement?
I'm in agreement.
Yes. Okay. Moves us down to regular business, Resolution 2025-087, Information Services Staffing, presented by Mr. Buckley.
Good morning, Commissioners.
Good morning.
The resolution you have before you today is to authorize us to bring in a candidate for information services as a network analyst. We've reclassified the position of the communications engineer from a grade 19 step 1 down to a grade 17 step 1. As you may recall, earlier this year we had a different resolution because the Washington State thresholds for an exempt computer technician requires us to bring them in at a step 4. So today, before you've got a request to bring in a network analyst at a grade 17 step 4. This is a savings to the county. If we were to hire the network analyst, or I'm sorry, if we were to hire the communications engineer versus the network analyst, we'd be bringing them in at a lower salary. Any questions?
Questions, Commissioners?
Questions here?
Bo, how long has this position been open?
It has been open since October last year.
So besides the $3,500 we're going to save, we've also saved funds because we haven't been paying out the salary. So
And benefits.
there's additional savings here than the $3,500.
That is correct.
So if there's no further discussion, or I'd entertain a motion.
Move for approval of Resolution 2025-087 as presented.
Second.
Been a motion and a second for approval of Resolution 2025-087. Is there any further discussion? Hearing none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Moves us down to Commissioner Administrator updates. Mr. Danzel.
Well, thank you, Mr. Chair and commissioners and folks. It's been like getting fed through a fire hose to some degree, but really spent a lot of the time taking some transition phone calls and meetings with Eric Johnson and some of the various folks and department heads from around the county, as well as outside of the county. I was able to attend the meeting regarding MISA. I thought that was very productive. I wanted to circle back up with some of the city council members there so that we could, offer everything that we could help with them. Digging into working with the folks at HAPO and trying to not let anything drop by the wayside there. And I'm looking forward to actually going out and touring some of that with Commissioner Bauman. And then anything that you gentlemen are looking for me to do moving forward, I'd love to set a time that I can come meet with you regularly and see what we can do. But other than that, it's just been great to be here. Relied on Jeff a lot I probably will, so I proceed with caution here. But just wanted to say thank you for the warm welcome to everybody. And if there's anything that you want me to be paying mind to, let me know.
Thank you. Just want to say welcome to you and thank you for coming in and picking up the slack with our interim administrator leaving for a 7-week vacation. We really appreciate it, Mr. Danzel. Mr. Bauman.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Last week, right towards the tail end of our commissioners' meeting, I had the opportunity to kind of start and then follow up with a school tour with a bunch of school kids here in Franklin County. I really enjoy showcasing our beautiful building here and appreciate all the offices here in the building that was willing to meet with those students and share with them. And it's just really fun to watch the light bulb turn on whenever the different people share the different tasks that are undertaken here in the different offices. So thank you to everybody that helped participate in that student tour. Last Thursday morning, there was the Benton Franklin Recovery Coalition annual breakfast at the HAPO Center, and this was the second year, and I believe there was about 520 people there, and it's really, really well attended. And it's somebody said something to me there at the meeting, and one of the observations that we made together was it's good to see the community come together in an area of absolute need and challenge, the mental health and substance abuse, and it's just good to see all the community come together for that breakfast. We certainly do have that need in our community. As our administrator said, we had a meeting last week in relationship to MISA. As we all know, MISA has had a number of challenges over the years, and they had reached out and asked to visit with me, and so I went up there and sat with them and listened to some of their concerns. And so coming out of that meeting, felt like it would be helpful if we were to put together a subsequent meeting that we did. And just want to say thank you to everybody that was involved. We had the sheriff's office, the treasurer's office, the assessor, had Wes, our planner, there. We had our, at that moment, 2 administrators, both there. We had the district court, we had TRIDEC, Benton Franklin Council of Governments, we had the PA's office, and just really appreciate everybody there. We kind of just discussed some of the challenges that they face, and then everybody had an opportunity around the room to kind of provide some insight or thoughts onto ways that we could be helpful. And so it is my understanding that they hope to have a follow-up meeting to that. And they're facing a really tough go. The grocery store there burned, and that was the gathering place of the town, and just in a challenging spot. So just hope that we can be helpful some way, and thankful for them for reaching out. Last week had a Franklin County IS exercise and planning meeting that went really well. Appreciate everybody that's on that and their expertise. Several meetings about shoreline reconveyance, some of the challenges and opportunities there. HAPO Center, went there multiple times, had meetings with staff on the HAPO Center, and they have a new manager in the ice arena. Had opportunity to meet Johnny, so thankful to have him there. wanted to just share with you, my fellow commissioners, and say thank you for helping find Wes McCart, our new planner. I'm excited to have Wes here. And Wes, thank you for being here and your digging in and your hard work already. So Wes and I had an opportunity to spend several hours together the other day, and we went out and kind of went on a tour and showed him some of the things in our county. It's going to take more than a couple hour tour to see it all, but we did have a productive meeting, had an opportunity to meet with some of our constituents and out in the county, and so thank you, Wes. Thank you for all that you do, and look forward to being able to support all your efforts. Had several meetings with our new administrator, Brian, and also a thanks to you, Brian, for your expertise and yeah, I'm always excited whenever I can rub shoulders with somebody that has varied and sundry talents outside of mine. So looking forward to working with you and appreciate your insight already. And one thing that Brian and I did talk about that I think that we should consider is potentially amending our agreement with him to allow for some additional flexibility there. And so just for consideration, that's something we might do. So that's my report, Mr. Chair.
Thank you. Commissioner Mullen.
So this week had the WASAC meeting, which was discussion with the Recovery Center. Also attended the Recovery Center breakfast, which was a sold-out event. I think last year they had a little over 300 attendees, and this year over 500. Just shows that the great support for our community has for a much-needed cause. Tomorrow's meeting with Greater Columbia Behavioral Health is canceled, so I just want to let everybody know that in case you were wanting to go for public comment. Also, Visit Tri-Cities has their new visitor's guide that's out. It's actually a beautiful pamphlet that showcases what all the Tri-Cities has to offer. And they are a great group of people doing a great job to help promote the Tri-Cities. And that concludes my report. Thank you.
Thank you. So last week had the veterans meeting at which we talked extensively about another VSO that they're on the process of trying to recruit and get hired for both counties, but also talked about the veterans and the inflationary status of our country, and that our contributions to them has not went up. So encouraged them to start putting a higher limit on those. And I'd like to get Mr. Danzel, who I've met with a couple times this week and last week, and I appreciate you, Mr. Danzel. So I'd like to get together with you to go down to the veterans and then also schedule a meeting with the director of Ben Franklin Transit and try to get this bus route put together for them to go to Walla Walla for their hospital and medical needs. Got a letter from Bruce LePage, who was here today and testified. I see he already left, but this is the intersection of Columbia River Road and Taylor Flats Road. I've been adamant about trying to get this hazard taken care of in our county because the trucks that want to try to get onto I-82 have to make this more than a 90-degree turn, and they get jackknifed, especially if a car is up there to park to make the turn and they get too close to the center line. These trucks cannot make that corner. I had talked to Mr. Shumway Harvey, who has since passed away, and he was willing to give us an easement to do this. Now I see the property's for sale, so I'm sure the situation has changed, but it's still, I'm not really in a big fan of roundabouts. I think if we just had a slow pitch turn off that corner, that tight corner, we could just come across there for the trucks to get onto Dant, put stop signs on Columbia River Road. We could alleviate the whole problem right there by just doing that. Just a simple exit for trucks to get onto Dant Road to get down to Road 100 to get on the highway. It's something I proposed a long time ago, and I think it's time we put that higher up on our road map. Unconstitutional pay, we still haven't heard from our Attorney General. And I have asked our new administrator to please look into what we got to do to get this resolved. Because obviously there's been nothing from the Attorney General's office. They refused. It's going to be 2 years in June, and we still haven't heard a response. I think it's time we move on by ourselves and try to at least alleviate this so it never happens again. And that's the voting of increased salaries by commissioners after they are elected. This happened 9 days after they are elected, and we'd never want this to happen again. And if we won't recognize Washington state law and what's been put into place already, then we're going to leave ourselves open to do it again. We have to get this resolved. We need a judge to make a decision on this. Wes McCart, want to say thanks, Wes, for coming down. I got to know Wes through the Eastern Washington Council of Governments, and the guy is, like I said, he knows GMA like the back of his hand. Some things that I've already talked to Mr. McCart about is the International Building Code and the fact that they are, for businesses, they want these 10,000-gallon tanks or a lagoon of water. And then I've met with the firefighters. They will not draw water out of those tanks. They will not draw water out of those ponds because if there's moss, it'll plug up their strainers, and then the truck is down for not just hours, lots of hours, because they got to disassemble it and take it all apart, and they will not even use these. So I don't know why we're putting this expense onto our businesses of Franklin County who are building buildings and are requiring this. I think this is something we need to address and get it out of our county. We don't need that. Extra expenses on businesses that are having a hard time making it right now. And then the last thing is, and there's other things, Wes, that I'll be getting together with you with on this, what has been going on in our county, in which I want to see our constituents having an easier road to manage when they want to increase their business and become more profitable through that, but also pay more taxes to the county because of what they're doing. The sanctuary state status. I don't think we need to meet a workshop with our sheriff. I think that we need to draft a letter that we send to the state, and we try to get other counties to join us in this sanctuary state status, because as a county, if we're going to allow these criminals, felons, murderers, whatever they may be, to reside in our county, we are putting our county's residents at risk. And we need to make sure that the rest of the state realizes Franklin County is not a sanctuary part of this state. We refuse to be part of it. We do not want to go after people that are here working for 20 years that don't have citizenship. No, we're going after the criminals, the people that have committed crimes, that have hurt people. These are the people we want out of our county. We want our county safe. So I think we should be making the step forward and be the leader on this as Franklin County. And so I'd like to see a letter drafted, sent to the governor, stating that we are no longer going to participate in your sanctuary state status. Franklin County is standing alone to make sure our citizens are safe. And I hope my other commissioners will join me on that, but that's yet to be determined. That's the end of my report. And we will move down to public comment.
Real quick, I was just going to add
Commissioner
that,
Mullen.
the health department is making some serious changes to septic systems in the state of Washington. And I'll have to do some more fact-finding on it, but it sounds like if you sell a property after April 1st and your septic system does not pass, your property gets condemned until it's repaired. So you won't be able to transfer title, you won't be able to sell the property, you cannot gift the property. So it's pretty concerning, so.
Serious.
Thank you.
I sit on the health board also, and yes, there are very big concerns on this, and that our Ben Franklin Health Department is going above and beyond the state standards and putting their own standards above that. And as a county, we can disband the health department and have our own health department here in Franklin County if we so choose. We don't have to be part of this bi-county. Am I correct, Mr. Denzel? Yes, so we might want to sort of start entertaining that. So with that, we'll move down to public comment. Is there anybody else for public comment?
I wasn't planning on commenting today, but I was thinking as I was sitting there about how many places all over the state that there have been people that have passed away in the jails, and it is this fentanyl that is killing our people. I just appreciate what President Trump is trying to do, because what he is trying to do is to stop that. I can tell you, I know of at least 5 people that have died from fentanyl. And it is so highly addictive. If you think that you can't be addicted, then you're wrong, because that's how addictive it is. And there are actually, I was just reading an article this morning of a sheriff's deputy, not here, but became addicted because of his constant exposure to it, and began stealing drugs off of people that they were arresting, and while in uniform taking it. So it's just an abhorrent drug. It's coming in from Canada, it's coming in from the southern border, and it is costing counties. And I feel like our federal government from the past administration really is liable. I don't know, I'm not an attorney. It just, personally, I feel is liable for the cost that they have impacted our counties and our states. And just feel so grateful that we have a president now that is doing what he can, and hopefully our counties will support him in that. And thank you.
Thank you. Anybody else for public comment?
I support having your own health department. I support having our own transit. So I hope that you continue to work on those issues. I also support the stand against the sanctuary state that our governor has taken. That is particularly what the documents I'm working on do stand. Okay? They do stand for that. And so I was waiting for your attention, sir.
Oh, I'm listening to every word you're saying. Just
Okay.
please, you got 3 minutes.
All right. I do think that we do have to continue to work with our sheriff. If you did not see the bill, there was a bill proposed that all sheriffs will be appointed. That's against the Constitution. They also wanted to certify them. And so in certifying them, the people couldn't vote for and keep their sheriff. They could be decertified by the commission, which is also not constitutional. And in that final bill, they wanted to mix men and women in the jail cells. I wrote a searing comment to our legislature, specifically to the heads of that committee, and I CC'd every legislator I knew in Eastern Washington. This is what we have to stop. And the paperwork that we're putting together as a constitutional compliant committee is hitting at that very issue, because the state is responsible for bringing in illegals. When you say that they can get unemployment by having a library card, you've broken that. And they've pushed the limit. They're way over the limit of constitutionality. And this is a movement that we are all looking for. But like Ben Franklin said, if you can keep it, we can't keep it if we don't work together. Thank you.
Thank you. Anybody else for public comment?
Good morning, Commissioners. Welcome, Mr. Danzel. Just a MISA update, and keep in mind that this is Deputy Rodriguez's 3rd day in MISA, working closely with Public Works. But yesterday, the owner of the cafe spent 7 hours cleaning up, and because somebody else, there was a young man in town that saw that taking place, so he started cleaning up around the grocery store. So we're making progress. We keep working with them. We plan on having a meeting in a couple of weeks with all the members, so make sure you get invited to that.
So a couple of comments, one on the intersection up by the fruit packing plant.
Douglas Fruit. Yep.
Yeah, when you look at those issues, you have to look at the engineering, then you have to educate, and then you have to do enforcement. There's a high fatality rate in that intersection, and the fatalities are primarily caused from 5 roads converging in one location. So if you are going to move or alter that intersection, it's expensive. The most inexpensive way is to develop a roundabout that slows everybody down, so at least if you get hit in the intersection, it's property damage, not death. And so entertaining the idea of a roundabout is not a bad thing for that intersection, because it will slow and calm traffic, and it's been proven to do that, and it's more cost effective. On the sanctuary state thing, I don't know that the state is a sanctuary state. I know that Franklin County is not. I know that every municipality on the east side of the state has declared that they're not. The sheriff's office on a weekly basis are working with federal agents, arresting criminals, booking them into jail, wherever the jail needs to be. The only thing that hampers our abilities to help ICE or Homeland Security is a law that's in place that our legislators put in place, saying that we can't book people for federal offenses, to include administrative offenses, without a magistrate, meaning a federal judge, authorizing that detention.
Thank you. Well, I don't know. The president's going to cut off the funding to Washington State because we're a sanctuary state. So I think that that's pretty much staying we're a sanctuary state. And that intersection out there has already lowered the speed limit down to 45 miles an hour. So there's already a reduction in speed, but it's just a cluster of roads, like he stated, and trucks are always the culprit, trying to make that right turn to get onto Dent Road. So with that, if we don't have anybody else coming up we do have somebody else coming up for public comment.
I'm Matt Beaton, your Franklin County Auditor. So my comments today are regarding the judgment that was entered against Franklin County regarding the harassment of the auditor staff. Today for us is about justice and judgment. And, defamation and bullying should never be tolerated. I hope, this judgment, because I want to note that a settlement is signed by parties and a judgment signed by a judge. I hope this judgment makes clear that years' worth of behavior that has resulted in the departure and loss of people from Franklin County who couldn't take some of the behavior and interactions is in fact unacceptable. It didn't have to be this way, but the fear that comes from that environment and the passive approach by the county left the employees who, in my office, were left with no choice. In fact, it was actually alluded to by a county representative that this was going to be your only way, was to go through this process. And so I am thankful that an independent outside the risk pool people looked at this and found a way to resolve it, and found a way to resolve it with a period at the end of the sentence. So with that being said, it's been difficult. It's been difficult on them. It's been difficult on me. But it's over, and they, like me, are glad it's resolved for very little money, because it was always about somebody declaring that this behavior in an environment with electeds, and we all know that some electeds are more powerful than others based on what their responsibilities are imbued with. And this is a good day to just put a period at that and hopefully move on. And I can say that the whole process has been with this particular judgment about justice, and that the politics and what goes on in a courthouse, and in many courthouses, when you have elected officials, it's over. And with that, I'll tell you that to anybody listening to me or wondering what some of this is about, I'm going to put on the blog post the relevant data that's related to this, and whether you're in the public or the media, you can go ahead and read it and decide for yourselves. But at the end, it's a judgment, and it's over. The behavior is what many people felt it was, but wouldn't be recognized by this entity. And so I thank you guys.
Thank you. If there's nobody else for public comment, nobody on the phone? Okay. Do we have a need for executive session?
Yes, we do, under RCW 4230, 110, 1I, potential litigation, 20 minutes with myself, Mackenzie, Margot, Mr. Danzel, clerk of the board, and of course, the board itself.
Okay. 20 minutes.
Yes.
At this time, we'll recess into executive session. At 9:51, we'll be out at 10:11. Okay, we are out of executive session with no decisions being made. We're back to regular session. Is there any other business for the good of the county? Hearing none, this meeting is adjourned. And we are now going to, is there a need for a recess? Anybody need a 5-minute break? Okay, so now we'll call the workshop to order and approve the workshop agenda. At this time, I'll call the workshop to session and approval of agenda.
Mr. Chairman, I would move for approval of the workshop agenda with one item.
Second?
There's been a motion and a second for the approval of the workshop agenda item, benefits discussion presented by Margot Wilder, Human Resources Director.
Good morning.
Good morning.
We have two presentations for you today.
Oh, excuse me. Before we start the presentations, I'm going to ask, is there anybody for public comment? Anybody for public comment on this? Nobody on the phone? Okay, so now we'll proceed.
We're going to have two presentations for you today. Wes Harris is here from HWL. He'll give you an ICRA presentation, and then we'll follow that up by Hub, who's our current broker, who will also give a presentation. And then in both presentations, we'll allow you to ask questions, and hopefully they can give you the information you're looking for.
Thank you.
Yep.
Welcome, Mr. Harris. Good to see you.
Commissioners, it's good to be here. Thank you for inviting me back again. As soon as Marshall figures out where I hit everything, we're going to be in good shape here. Yes.
As soon as we get this up and going.
There we go.
Okay.
Now, Commissioners, thank you for inviting us again. We gave the same presentation last time, so it's just kind of not much information has changed. It was only 6 or 7 months ago when we did it, so the data is pretty much current to that time. We were going to update it, but a lot of the data we needed is not out yet still, so this is the most current data we have. And I'm going to let Marshall this time. Last time I gave the presentation, I think when I was all done, everybody was kind of checking out the colors of their socks. And so I think I kind of flew it too high, and it is a complicated program to understand. And so please feel free to stop and ask questions as we go through it today. And Marshall is going to do the presentation, and I think he's going to do a better job than I did.
Well, welcome, Marshall. We look forward to it.
Thank you
But
very
Wes,
much.
don't cut yourself short. You did a great job.
Thank you.
As he stated, I'm a big fan of the KISS formula, keep it simple, right? We would definitely want to introduce you guys to this as we have before, but keep the information to the point to where it's the objective facts. But before we begin, we definitely want to reiterate that we come to the table literally because we were asked to kind of provide an option. We'll discuss the reasons why we were asked, but we don't have any, we don't have a stake in this, nothing that we are providing to you guys we're going to get a kickback on. We're literally just here because we believe in this. It's something that we use in our current environment, on our businesses, and we feel like it's a solid option for the county. Mr. Harris himself, he is SHRM certified, which is a very high designated HR certification. So he does have some expertise. He's also part of the IATSE Board for Pension and Health and Welfare. So he's familiar with not only collective bargaining agreements, but the implication that this ICRA presents in those environments. So what was the problem? This initially started because I think it was a Concourse study that said, hey, you guys have a $3.5 to $7 million deficit in the next fiscal year, and that's going to continue for the foreseeable future. And during that evaluation, they said, hey, you guys are comparable to a lot of the counties that are around you, but the big difference is the VEBA contributions. So this is a quick little table that explains kind of the cost, the direct cost to the county regarding both VEBA as well as the health insurance contributions. And as you can see across the board, there's definitely been an increase on both sides, but the more substantial of the two is kind of displayed on this next slide. It shows that, hey, you're spending 50-50 roughly on health insurance contributions as well as VEBA, but the big cost difference, or the big price increase over the last several years has been the VEBA contributions. Health insurance contributions over that time went up 27%, although the VEBA contributions have gone up 53%. One of those is definitely a usable benefit. Every contribution you guys make to health insurance is something that an employee can directly use at that point in time. They have that benefit readily in their hands. The VEBA, however, is and we'll describe this a little later on, the VEBA is something that is potentially for the future or potentially not usable at all. And this kind of defines that. If you look at the total amount allocated to the VEBA, what I'm going to call a trust, right? That's everybody's pooled assets of the VEBA. The fund is sitting somewhere, at the time we made this document, was about $10 million, and that might even be closer to $11 million at this point. And that continues to grow year over year. You guys are contributing roughly, from that previous slide, let's call it $2.5 million a year to VEBA, to the trust. And the last information we had, you guys were annually using about 16% of it, or I believe, 16% of it, which is $1.6 million a year. So every year that is being increased roughly $700,000 to $800,000. A couple of the I would say the negative aspects of the VEBA. One is the limitations of use, right? You're realistically treating it like a more restricted healthcare savings account. Anytime you want to use the funds out of that VEBA, you can't use them for your current group medical plan or costs. Premiums, thank you. You mean you can use that for, I would say, potential like outside costs of that if you've got normal things that would be used on a healthcare savings account, but to get those funds back apparently is a pretty substantial process. It's not easily accessible. And you mean these kind of touch on some of those factors that are, I would see, be considered negative as well. You mean the plan is continuing to grow because people can't use it. They can't use those funds. Yes, you're giving that benefit, and it's a direct cost to you guys as the county, so you have this high-level top number that you have to pay no matter what, but are your employees receiving the benefits of the dollar that you are giving them?
Did I hear correctly that you said that currently we're using 16% per year of the VEBA contribution?
Of the VEBA fund, the $10 million at the time we made it, there was about a $10 million fund, what I'm
We're
going to call
using
a trust.
16% per year. Do you know what of our yearly contribution, what percentage we actually use?
So if you're you're contributing 2.5 and you're using 1.6, you mean, what is that? Roughly 70%, somewhere around there? That's just quick math in my head, but.
So actually, the $800 contribution you're making, you have about $100 utilization on.
Thank you.
And I know you guys have recently made some I believe last year you guys made some changes at that VEBA contribution and how that's calculated. So these numbers, although may not be 100% down to the penny, right, the overall objective and the philosophy is still the same. So that was kind of a brief description of the problems that VEBA cause you guys cost associated wise. And what we brought to the table and said, hey, this is something we're using it's called an ICRA. And this is just a brief introduction into what an ICRA is.
And the reason for the ICRA is then it's going to allow you to be able to use VEBA money to go ahead and pay premium. Okay? So that was the main reason for introducing the ICRA program. And there's other utilizations we'll go into right now.
Yep. So what the ICRA is it's an individual healthcare reimbursement plan, basically. It gives everybody the opportunity to have the choice in their healthcare plans. It takes it out of your guys' hands being healthcare insurance providers to, you're giving out the benefit and letting people have the freedom to make the choices that help their life the best. So these are a couple benefits of the ICRA. It is flexible, right? Every person can decide, hey, I want a very high deductible plan because I only want catastrophic coverage, or hey, I need an immediate, every day I want very low copays, I don't want a very low deductible. Everybody gets the freedom to choose their own plan on the healthcare exchange. You mean it also, it gives you the option to pay cash in lieu of the benefit, right? And we'll kind of discuss how that works, but it gives people the flexibility to have the asset in their hand in cash. I mean, everybody knows eggs are $35 a dozen, it feels like. And it gives the people the ability to make that choice versus the being forced into a healthcare insurance coverage. It controls the cost for the county. You set a direct number, right? And you guys know from your guys' perspective that, hey, every person, we're contributing this amount, and it, with the same time, giving the flexibility for them. And at the end of the day, it also takes you guys out of being a healthcare insurance provider. Cuts a lot of overhead and oversight from your guys' perspective.
Question for you.
Yep.
Did I hear correctly that you cannot use VEBA for your current premiums?
For your guys' group medical plan, well, you guys are contributing right now, right? The two choices are, hey, you can take the VEBA as a benefit, or you can take health insurance as a secondary thing. And those two kind of balance out to whatever dollar number you guys are spending per employee, right? So right now, you cannot use your excess funds that are in the trust to pay if you went and got outside of Franklin County Health Insurance. That is our understanding, that you can't use those VEBA benefits because you've been provided a employer-based healthcare group plan.
Got it. Thank you.
And I did the math that we're only using 64%. Okay, and then one question is, I was told before that once you're done with the county, you can take this plan with you.
Yep.
And all you gotta do is just pay the premiums and you get your insurance plan for after the county employment.
100%. So currently, right, if anybody leaves employment here, they're offered, if they have the benefit of health insurance, they're offered COBRA coverage, right? That's because it is a group plan that you guys are currently on, right? What we're suggesting is that you move to the ICHRA, and everybody has their own individual coverage plan through
Right.
the marketplace. It is theirs, it's their responsibility. They get reimbursed for some of that cost or all of that cost depending on the situation. But it is their healthcare plan. You guys have no say in what happens with that.
That's right. Okay, thank you.
And this is just a quick infographic that says how people are shifting to this because of the flexibility. The usage of ICHRA is up across the country. The provider that we use, which is Fringe Benefit Group, they have said that they have a couple entities, some agencies, meaning counties, cities, municipalities, that are in that, but I don't think it is a highly used option across the board yet. But
You guys would definitely be, if you looked at this or tried to do it in some manner or form, be pretty much cutting edge. You would be,
Seeing
yeah,
2022 to 2023, you're up 171%.
correct.
And Wes, talking to you previously, you're very engaged in the military. This is where else, what other avenues are you seeing a growth?
The biggest growth is in, that we see because we're involved in it, right, is the military. So when we have federal contractors and things like that, we're required to spend so much on health benefits, and so much of that money is coming to right now about $5 a head is what, their benefits come to. With this program right here, we're able to go ahead and give that $5 an hour to the employee, allow him to go into the ICHRA plan and buy what plan works for him. And generally what they're finding is it's not as expensive as the plan we were providing, and it's not a one-size-fits-all plan that we were providing. So that's one of the fastest growing areas we see it in, right? But also we're seeing it in the general public. Since the, Obamacare, we have Affordable Care Act, sorry about that, I misspoke on that. So since that has come into being, that is one of the main reasons it's been going on.
Okay.
So this briefly discusses kind of the functionality of how this works. The easiest way for me to explain this to anybody is starting to, let's say today, right, there is a black and white. Today, we are no longer paying any VEBA contributions, we're no longer paying any health insurance contributions, and everybody is making whatever their wage is today. The easiest way to implement this would be, hey, we're going to give everybody a $5 an hour, just a number thrown in the air, a $5 an hour raise. Everybody gets that today. At that same time, we are going to offer people the opportunity to join the ICHRA plan. That sets you on the path of being ACA compliant, Affordable Care Act compliant, because you guys have to offer health insurance coverage to anybody who is a full-time employee. So you meet the ACA requirements, and then everybody has their ability to choose, hey, yes, I need health insurance for my family. Perfect, okay? Go out and you shop the marketplace. You find the plan that is available to you, or the best plan that is available to you. You take that, and then, well, I guess the first option would be, hey, I don't need health insurance. Cool, you get to keep that $5 an hour, roughly $800 a month in your pocket, and you can use it for whatever expenses, however you want it as cash to you. The second option would be, hey, I do need health insurance. You go out, shop, find the plan that you need. You sign up through the ICHRA platform, and whatever dollar amount you spend on insurance up to that $800 would be reimbursed. It's taken out of that $800 we're giving you as cash, so there's a beneficial tax implication to the employee because of that. And then you reimburse them on the back end with a credit card or however that is handled on the back end.
So a lot of times what you do is we'll send out looks like a Visa card, right? That the county does, right? That they can go ahead and use that to apply against the payment that they have. Say they went on the exchange and bought a $300 plan. They would have on this card the ability to go ahead and pay for that $300, but that $300 is deducted from what they would normally get in that $800, so they'd only get $500.
We've also suggested that, you currently have people who are taking all $1,600 of contribution in health insurance, right? Plus potentially some on top of that. You guys have the flexibility when you're designing your program to say, hey, we're giving you $800 in cash, but we will reimburse you all the way up to $1,600 or $1,200, whatever number you come up with, to make it equitable for your current staff. So nothing is being pulled out from underneath them.
So you have different classes that you can separate. You can call them family classes, you can call them executive classes. It allows you to break people out by distinguishing things, and we have a list of what those are. And so an executive class, would be able to have more or less, so you can distinguish between groups, because you do have CBAs, and CBAs would be a class. And that, of course, would be governed by, the negotiations with the CBA.
So once again, this just describes how that healthcare plan is paid for. It also gives them the flexibility to, let's say currently in my VEBA account, I've got tens of thousands of dollars in excess contributions that are just sitting in that VEBA. If you guys shift to this and they are no longer allowed to be part of that group healthcare plan, they can use those excess VEBA contributions that they have sitting in their account to pay for that health insurance premium, because it's not part of your current group medical plan.
So for argument's sake, say that we have somebody with $20,000 in their VEBA account.
Mm-hmm.
They could pay their monthly
Premium.
ICHRA premium until that were
Is gone.
expended.
Yep. And then they are retaining that $800 of cash on their paycheck.
Or health benefit is what you're looking at. You're paying a health premium benefit to them, right? And like I said, that money, they would be able to, if they're not spending it on that, they can spend it any way they want. So the nice thing about it is it's a way to go ahead and use that money. That instead of using 10% of it, okay, they're going to be able to use a lot more of it to pay their premium.
And I think that currently, under the plan we have right now, we have some members with over 200,000. They're limited to using that only for health care reasons.
That's right.
Yep.
There's no way they can draw it out. There's no way that they're going to be able to use it except when they leave the county and pay premium on an insurance. This is a way for them to pay a premium without leaving the county. The other thing is that we look at, we're really kind of excited about, is that's a significant raise when you figure out the average wage of the employee
Yes.
with the county.
Yes.
You're talking somewhere in the neighborhood of 15 to 20% wage increase if they actually receive that money.
Yes.
And they can use their VEBA, and so it's not costing them. They're utilizing money that you've already given to them that they haven't been able to use before.
Exactly. And this just kind of describes that sliding scale that we talked about. Hey, you mean the health insurance that I want to acquire costs $300. We're going to deduct $300 out of that $800. You'll get $500 in on your paycheck, and that $300 will be reimbursed to you untaxable income, right, on the back end. So, and then the main reason that we've brought this up and kind of discussed with you guys is the cost reduction for you as the county leaders, right, to be fiscally responsible. This and the next slide, I would say, kind of touch very, very detailed, but to simplify it, right, the goal is to kind of reduce one or the other. Whether you're talking about the healthcare contributions or you're talking about the VIBA, you want to reduce 40 to 50% of your guys' costs, and this is a way to make that happen. So if you get rid of, let's say we get rid of the VIBA contributions completely, which is effectively what we're doing, you're saving yourself about $2 to $2.5 million in the neighborhood of that, which would be pretty substantial for you. And this kind of details how that would happen. You're free and clear of all of the healthcare contributions and all of the VIBA, which is roughly $5.4 million. If you're just contributing to the ICRA plan at, let's say, $800 a month for each employee, it's half of that number. It's $2.4 million plus the cost of fringe benefits if you're paying it in cash. So bring it up to $2.7 million. You take that away from $5.3 million, and you're roughly 40 to 50% of the number previously.
And I know you're just rounding off numbers there at 300. I don't believe we're at 300 employees. I think we're more in the 260, 270, aren't we? Yeah.
That's right.
Yeah.
So it'd be even.
We kind of overstated the amount of employees and also the amount of them that would take 100% cash benefit at a basis of 85%. So we could figure out the few to FICA workman's comp and unemployment that you would have to pay in addition. So it means you're not providing it in a benefit. You have to pay those matching contributions on it. So we kind of overstated that to show that in the end, it would probably be about a $10,000 difference from where you are right now a year.
Okay.
Relatively substantial cost savings for you guys. And the key thing the reason that we like it in our environment of being an employer is it gives people the flexibility, right? I would say 95% of our employees that we offer this plan to, they take the cash in lieu of, because it is a readily usable benefit to them immediately. They have the cash, they can spend it on whatever they need. And then the ones that do need it, they definitely partake, and there's a lot of other benefits, or not benefits to this, a lot of other variables in there. You mean dental insurance, vision insurance, life and death. You mean all those are the things that you can touch base with whatever provider you guys select, if you guys do plan to go down the path of ICRA.
The other thing is, like I said, you know, we start with your non-CBA members first, just to, you know, to do a study and still be able to have the others. And like I said, you know, we're giving this as not even a recommendation. We're just saying, here's another option, right? You know, we try to look at this. I was actually asked by Mr. Dieter, Commissioner Dieter, to, you know, what would I do if this was my business, this county? How would I look at this problem? What solutions would we be looking at? And to that end, this is one of the things that we looked at and thought, yeah, it's kind of interesting. Now, whether or not it can actually, you know, be done with the county, right, is beyond us. You know, like I said, we're not insurance brokers, we're not lawyers. You have your own, a very good one, I might add. He's not going to look up. They would be the people to have to vet it. The thing is, we have done some vetting through the brokers and the insurance and everything, and they're telling us it's all feasible.
Have you got any other counties that are doing this at this time in the state of Washington? Any other?
Not that I'm aware of.
Any other government entities?
I have not, and I need to look and research that, 'cause it's been, like I said, almost a year since we put this together, right? To see what's out there that you guys could actually probably, you know, see what they've done and how they've done it.
One other question is, once my days are done here as a county commissioner, then my wife and I are gonna be without insurance. Is there a possibility for an individual to get onto one of these?
So, yes, and because actually.
Because if we can
well,
continue
actually,
it,
Yeah, actually, you have a business, so,
Yes, we have several businesses and employees that I would like to offer them some insurance, so this is another
Absolutely.
potential for
It
it.
is a great plan for them. Small, and if we went back and looked at who's utilizing the plan the most, a lot of it's small business. Small businesses increased by 80%.
I'll be
So
talking to
really
you
a
after the meeting.
significant number, right? And like I said, this is all, you know, revolutionary. This is cutting edge. This would be one of those things you know, that needs to really be vetted by the legal department and make sure that it's all compliant.
Okay.
I think that would be my main question is the $800 a month sufficient to get insurance that would meet the minimum value and affordability requirements of the Affordable Care Act?
Yep. And that's why
And
we
the-
have.
Yeah, the answer to that is, you know, we've kind of looked at that, and it was in some of the follow-ups that we didn't go to because of we just didn't want to fly this up too high, and it's kind of getting down in the weeds, right? But to answer your question, yeah, we looked at the affordability and what that would be, and what that minimum would be. And also, we looked at the plans on the state exchange. There's a lot of great options out there, right? There's a lot of people that already have medical insurance through their spouse, right? Or because they're, we have some Social Security disability, things like that, and people on Medicare, right? So, there's a lot of things out there. And, if you will, the copper plan going to the basic single individual, because here it is, you have a lot of individuals here who are under 35, right? Not married, and they're single, and they're gonna live forever. Just ask them, right? They don't need health insurance, right? We got this, okay? But even if they just got like a copper plan, you're talking in the low 300s, okay? So there's still significant savings and something they might be interested in. But the cost that you're looking, the answer for you is, yes, we have measured it out to figure out what the minimum plan under the silver would be to be compliant.
So one last question from me, Wes, is, I'm getting close to that age of Medicare and Medicaid. How does it interact with that?
This is one of those times where I'll say, hey, that's not our
Right.
area of expertise. We would definitely recommend you talk to your broker, the provider of the ICHRA plan. And I would say kind of similar to your question, right? That's something that you would work out with them, the feasibility of the $800. They'll give you, hey, you've got to provide this much in contributions to your employees at this tier, at this tier, at this tier. They'll give you those. They do the study geographically and with your census of your employees, and they determine that and make sure that it meets ACA requirements. So I would say both of those questions would be better handled by the ICHRA broker or provider.
Because I thought probably Wes and I were close to the same age.
No,
but
no,
you're
I
saying
think
you're
I
younger than me.
actually have you. If not, Larry's got
I was
his
just
vote.
fascinated by you saying that you might be considering retiring.
Yeah. Aren't we all? So that's sooner or later.
Sooner.
And so the 9.12 up there is what we kind of put up there, so you kind of see how we came up with that.
You made a statement earlier that 800 and then you could go clear up to the 1,600. So does that mean that every employee is entitled to that 1,600 or is it
So
they're
it's-
matching the 800?
It's kind of the classes, when we were talking about classes, right? You can have separate classes of individuals. Like I said, your CVA with, Teamsters, right? Would be a separate class because of negotiations that go on with them, right? Executives, elected officials, things like that can be separate classes. So you're allowed to do separate classes within the ICHRA plan.
Okay.
I would say the swinging theory, right? You have the most you're going to contribute in cash to any employee is $800, and the most you're going to reimburse an employee for insurance for would be $1,600. And as you swing closer to the reimbursement part, that cash is going to diminish down till it's zero, right? Once you're reimbursing $800, but you would reimburse them up to $1,600. And I would say that would just be more of a gracious thing to ensure that anybody who is currently, let's say their insurance costs $1,500, you don't want them to, hey, we've taken this away from you, we're only giving you $800, and you feel like you've been robbed of $700.
Gotcha.
So.
The idea is not to take anything away. Some of the eligible classes up there, I threw up there just so you guys could see what they are and how they're broken out. And that's not all of them, it's just an example.
Yep.
All right. Any questions, commissioners? We really appreciate you taking the time to present this again. I think it's a great option. Needs to be
We
weighed.
appreciate the time as well, so definitely love working with you guys, and you guys are fantastic, so.
Thank you for everything you're doing out at the HAPO Center.
Hey, thank you.
Yep. Thank you for your time.
We'll readjust and get you hub. Here, let's see. Measure. Yeah, go ahead and pull it unless you want to eject it properly. No. Thanks. Yeah, absolutely. Thank you. What happened? I apparently broke the computer. Where did the mouse go? Yeah, like the mouse isn't moving.
For me and Tammy.
Control Alt Delete it real quick. 2 insurance presentations before noon. That's glutton for punishment.
What the heck?
Frozen at the moment. Could reboot it. That might be the best.
I'd like to not do that. Maybe I can close this down.
Task manager.
Well, I can't. That's the problem.
Use your mouse.
Do we have just another mouse?
But it's locked.
Well, the mouse is. I mean, I was using it.
Right.
Yeah, I don't know how to get that. I don't know how to get that up there. Oh. Oops, sorry. That's me. That's me going tab. Why are there like 4 desktops open? We might have to restart it.
I don't see the restart.
We don't have just a mouse up here, do we?
Here. No. It'll take a moment.
We need a third chair. Are you gonna stay back there, Jamie, or?
Yeah.
Okay.
She's chicken though.
Yeah.
They said I piped into a meeting. I don't remember that.
There was one that you did. I think it was like WebEx or something. It was like a year ago or so.
Didn't say anything.
Oh, wow. Nothing bad. Yeah, all sorts of good information. You could just join for, sit there, smile. I'm gonna have Brandon's chair here in a second. So he struggles with this, but I'm pretty sure you have to go down to go the right direction.
Show him. I'm not allowed to touch it.
Oh, good. He struggles with it, and you're not allowed to touch it. This is what's convenient, though. The little red guy. Okay, that worked. Worked? Yeah. We'll blame Wes. Wes broke it.
Spokane.
Oh.
Yeah, Arizona is a snowbird.
Oh, I see.
Work gets in the way.
Yeah, Teresa, it broke again. I don't know what the deal is.
Break time, or do you want me to start the discussion?
No, let's bring up this presentation, just so we can get this going. It's showing, it's showing there, but it's not showing me the mouse here. See, it's moving on that, but this is not on here.
That's exactly right. It better. So isn't it like 2,300 tons?
What if is this the, okay, let me. I don't know what the deal is, but that seemed to work. I'll plug that back in a second. That's weird. So let's see if it. Okay. I'm gonna let them do that because they have more experience with that. But it just needs to show up there again.
I was in high school.
There is somebody.
John Birch decided to put them signs up, no $1 trillion debt.
Yeah. Trillions of common word now. Never heard of it.
So listen to this. I'll do a test with you guys.
Full screen.
In seconds.
So this is ready. Hold on. No?
How about $1 billion?
Oh, wait, let me look here. There it is. Teresa, I got it.
32,000
Maybe.
years measured in seconds. Yeah.
I'm clicking on it, but it's not doing anything.
That's only counting the actual debt, not the.
Can you stop sharing and then try sharing again? You see if this will work.
We get it?
We are 3/4 of the way there.
You love technology.
Do I need to come down there and get this done?
Yes, I want to see this. I want to see this. Hang on.
Control, Alt, Delete.
Off, on.
I'm out of here.
Where's the baling wire? I'll get the baling, I'll get it.
We can start the conversation. I don't need slides if, I mean, your time is valuable, so.
Okay, I will get out of your way. When that eventually goes, you're
My name
good
is
to go.
Dan Fisher. I work for Hub International. I am a shareholder, but to value my shares, you'll need scientific notation, so it's.
Oh,
okay. Got it. Hub International, we work for Hub Northwest. I'm in support of the team that helps manage your plan. They are Jamie and Brandon here, who you have met before. I've been invited in because in the last workshop, a number of questions came up that they felt that I could help address, such as I've got a lot of experience self-funding with counties, and in fact, if you choose not to self-fund, I wouldn't be part of the ongoing team. I did the Lincoln County, which is about half your size. Took them self-funding in 2011 and know the reasons that they went back into the PEB, which would be helpful for you to know because the issue that they had was also the VEBA, and their maximum VEBA contribution was 680, and yours is over 1,600?
Yeah.
Okay. I am a CPA, past president of the Washington Society of CPAs, former counsel on the AICPA. I am ICRA certified, so I can comment on any questions that you have about the ICRA from the, not the insurance perspective, but more the financial planning perspective. And whether it would fit here at the county, I can save you a lot of time on that. The presentation that was done earlier was quite good and accurate. A couple of things that was missed is whether you would be able to avoid ACA penalties under the proposal, and in my opinion, you would not. And the reason is that VEBA money is not county money, therefore it's not a county contribution. It would be individuals' money, and individuals who use their own money towards a premium does not meet the ACA affordability standard under any of the safe harbors. So when you hear of cities or counties that may be doing this, there's 39 counties in the state of Washington. 16 have self-funding in some form, most of the larger ones. Lincoln County was kind of an outlier at 110 employees. They self-funded because, for two reasons, they could, and they had low claims at the time that they went self-funding. What we see here.
Could I get some clarification?
Mm-hmm.
So you're saying that that doesn't meet the criteria of the Affordable Care Act. If we are making an ICRA contribution to them, or I'm sorry, yeah, an ICRA contribution to them,
Mm-hmm.
and they chose to use they chose to get a higher level of plan, and we were making an ICRA contribution of X dollars, and they chose a plan that was higher than that, they could use their VEBA for that increased dollar value, and that would not be in violation.
No, it wouldn't. No,
Or if they chose to take their ICRA contribution as cash and fund their health plan out of their VEBA, they could do that as well. Our requirement, according to the Affordable Care Act, is to provide that contribution.
Correct.
They choose it however.
Correct.
So technically, it would not meet the Affordable Care Act. However, our component is the contribution, and they can use it however they want. Therefore, we would be in compliance with the Affordable Care Act.
Correct. The issue is it's 1,680 is your VEBA contribution?
That's close. It's
1580.
1,580? Okay. And I'm sorry to get into the weeds. I was supposed to do the introduction and hand it off to do the self-funding.
well, Margot,
analysis.
is it 1,580 or what is it? Where?
I'm sorry, focus on the microphone. What was the question?
What is our contribution to VEBA?
Well, if for the, what
For
it was.
for they're not taking no insurance or nothing?
It's 1568.
Okay, there you go.
So the issue becomes, are you going to put it into a ICRA or a VEBA? It's still 1,500 and whatever it is as a county contribution. That doesn't save you any money. Now, how the employee spends it is going to change under an ICRA versus a VEBA or what have you. But the point is it's more like the VEBA is more like an HSA. As soon as you put the money in, it's mine. You don't have any rights to it, and if I leave, it goes with me, okay? So you've got $200,000 balances in VEBAs, that's
Higher than that.
That's a retirement fund. So you're gonna be bargaining that as if it's wages. So ICRA was presented correctly, but not applied in your situation, because if you're gonna now bargain with me to use my own VEBA funds to pay for my individual health insurance.
I don't believe that was at all what was intended. We are not saying in any way, shape, or form that the current $10 million+ VEBA fund belongs to us. We are identifying as it is not being used effectively, and many of these employees can't even access it to a level of actual use. I mean, in some cases, it would take many, many years. We have a number that are over $200,000, and I mean, unless you put in a $150,000 swimming pool and get a doctor to sign off of it as a therapy, I don't know how you do that. And so I think what we're trying to say is this isn't being used effectively, and we're trying to figure out, because we're on an intersection that we cannot fund, and we're trying to figure out how do we do this. And as was described, we're using 64% of the yearly contributions are effectively being used. So that is as businessmen, that is a very poor return on investment, I guess you would say. We're not using it to the level of, you can't get 100% on a lot of things, but if you can get into the 90s, that's considered pretty well. If you're in the 60s, it's not an effective use.
Correct, but here's the disconnect. That VEBA, if it's my VEBA account, I don't view it as a health plan account. It's retirement money. So the fact that only 16% is being spent out on healthcare or other eligible items is to my benefit. I want my balance to be higher, not lower. I want you to spend county money on my health choices, not my own money. If it's my own money, that's where the ACA affordability gets failed.
But in
Yeah, I
clarity of
understand.
that, though, I mean, I think we're sort of getting sideways here, because we're talking about contributing to every employee in the county $800. If they want to up that policy and make that policy better, they can use that VEBA account. That's all we're saying.
Yes, they can.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
So we're not trying to take anything away from them. That's their VEBA money.
Oh, I
It's theirs to
understand.
deal with.
We work for the county.
Right.
Okay, and our job is to help you use the benefit dollars and budget and get the most value for your employees for that. So ICRA is a lot of wonderful things. I mean, it has its applications. What was presented here today was mostly accurate. The application here, there's a disconnect. And the reason is you're trying to solve a VEBA problem that the ICHRA is not going to do, even if it isn't an ACA affordability issue, which it will be. We need to help you discover what is going to work here and what isn't. What we're here to do is talk about the plan that you already have and how it works for you, how it could be improved, and an option to at least look at self-insurance. And that's my role here today, is to help answer all those questions I am in support of the team here that has done a great job. It was a 3% Primera.
3.5%, yeah.
3.5% Primera renewal. The 5-year graph on your health insurance at 27%, it's actually closer to 8 or 9. So it's your group plan, the concerns that I have from my perspective, looking at it at a global perspective, is you're paying people to waive.
Yeah.
You're paying people to waive.
Not take our insurance.
Correct. So, and what comes into play is called adverse selection. Over time, those that need the health plan will enroll, and those that would rather have the money are going to waive and take that VEBA contribution. That's your problem. The health plan by itself is doing wonderfully. I mean, we're going to talk about self-insurance as a way to give control back to you and give you a vision of what you can do with it, what the advantages and the disadvantages are. But if you did just absolutely nothing and kept them turned loose on renewing your benefits as they are with Primera or whatever carrier has the most competitive bid at the time, you're fine. Where you're not going to be fine is if you continue to pay people to waive, because your group, not your employee group, but those that enroll over time through adverse selection will be your more, your sicker employees, and that's where the health plan then could go into what's called a death spiral. That's what we're here to help you avoid.
So could I ask for clarity on what you're saying, because you're helping me understand. So it appears that with the way that it's currently set up, we are incentivizing people that are the healthiest to get off of the plan.
Yes.
And we are incentivizing the people that are actually not incentivizing, but the way that it's currently set up, both ways get more expensive. Because we're incentivizing the healthiest to get out of the pool.
Correct.
And now the pool is a not as healthy pool.
Correct.
So it gets expensive because it's not as healthy as an average.
Yes.
And then you're incentivizing those that get out, which drives up that cost. So both costs, the way it's set up, are being driven upward.
Can I add, along with that, with the people that are not in, your pool has gotten smaller that you're insuring, and that's hurting us too.
So, and you have the added risk of CBAs. So eventually, you're going to offer a health plan that is more expensive than the Teamsters or the IAF or the PEB. I don't think you're there yet. I can't predict when you'll get there at your current rate. It will happen. I just can't tell you when. And then you're going to have one of your bargaining groups go, we want out. And now what's remaining is even smaller.
Yes.
Okay?
It's driving up costs. Smaller the group, the higher the costs.
Yes, that's true. Our job is to help you offer the best benefit for the lowest cost, and the first and foremost benefit is if you all remain together. So you have a health and welfare committee.
Benefits
correct?
committee, yes.
The bargaining units are on the same side of the table as you are when it comes to the benefit plans. They need to be part of these conversations because they're making the decisions and then comparing it with what is available to them independently. And I've been down this road many, many times. First, it's Teamsters, AFSCME. They all have their own programs. Even at Lincoln County, when it went back into the PEB, and I can explain how that happened, the sheriffs went, no, we want our own plan. So now what went into the PEB is going to stay there. They can't come back out because the group's too small. And the smaller you are, the more attractive the PEB gets, the more attractive the Association of Washington Cities, the more attractive the Washington County's Insurance Fund are. Not bad options, but they're not the best option for a 275 life group, which is you. Sorry about the introduction taking so long, but the idea here is to get your questions answered so you're not festering and you're asking way too many people for all very good advice with the ICRA misapplied. Okay? Your initial problem is solving the VEBA issue. You can have the best broker in the world, which the best broker in the world is the one that's standing next to you when your claims go down. And we may or may not have a positive influence on that. Under fully insured plans, we don't. Under self-funded plans, we do. And that's where the different expertise comes in on self-funding versus fully insured. So I'm going to turn it over to Brandon to get into where you're at now, talk about the self-insurance feasibility analysis. And again, anything that you want to ask as it relates to benefits, health insurance, health care, now's the time.
Thank you, Dan. Yeah, I got the, and I can actually use the clicker appropriately this time. Yeah. Okay, so we're gonna spend some time deep diving today compared to like where we are with a fully insured plan versus self-insured and what that looks like. We've gone ahead, this is to me a continuation from our workshop meeting back in June last year, where we were looking at the Primera plan. We remember we had a renewal rate cap of 11%, and then we negotiated it down to a 3.5% increase. But during that time, as we landed in that meeting, we talked about some concepts of self-funding. If you remember, talking about clinics and some other options that we were pretty excited about in terms of a community-based approach. But where we left it was there needs to be a feasibility analysis done. And we've started, as your consultant and as your broker, we've started that process. We have also in hand today a quote, a soft quote from our stop loss carrier, or excuse me, a stop loss insurance carrier and a TPA third-party administrator. So you can see how it fits compared to the current plan we have today and what we're projecting possibly in the future. Okay? So some of the options that you've wanted to explore and discuss that we've just been talking about currently already are the fully insured where we're at today. That includes insurance carriers like a fully insured health plan, excuse me. Primera Blue Cross, United Healthcare, Cigna, Assurus, Aetna, different carriers that we've had at the county, Primera being the primary one. Association health plans, which are fully insured. Washington County's Insurance Fund, we talked about PEB, Teamsters. Those would fit in that category of association plans. Alternative funding, which you listened to earlier about the ICRA. And, you know, there's also such things like an HRA, which is a health reimbursement arrangement provided by the employer. Sometimes you self-insure some of the deductible on your fully insured plan, or co-pays or out-of-pocket maximums. But we're going to focus here is into the self-funding spectrum, specifically what level-funded self-funding is, ASL self-funding. It's offered typically through a carrier like level funding, captives for stop loss, unbundled, and direct contracting. Really going to lean heavy into the unbundled and direct contracting. So what do all those plans face, even in ICRA, right? As you go through and set your contribution year after year in the market, is medical inflation. Essentially, medical trends continue to increase. So 2025, excuse me, the expected medical trend increase is around 8%. That's a national average. What's driving that? The biggest driver is prescription drugs, right? And we have over 11.4% and a 13.3% on the specialty side. The bottom line is all trends have increased even from last year. So you'll see how I'm going to apply this later and when we do an analysis compared to what we're looking at from a fully insured quote to a self-insured plan. A lot on here, right, obviously, but I really wanted to focus on a couple key pieces. So when you're comparing fully insured to self-insured, the financial risk, and what do you mean by that? Essentially, the funding of it. Essentially, the employer contracts with an insurance carrier on the fully insured side. They accept all the risk. What do I mean by that? Like whoever you're working with, that fully insured carrier is assuming any large claimant that comes in. So you have a rate, you pay the rate, they take on the risk from that point, right? And you have a contract set up that renews every year. That risk renews every year at that point, right? On a self-insured side, you're assuming that risk. Now, typically, you're using a third-party administrator. Not typically, you are using a third-party administrator to pay for those benefits. But you say accept all the risk at that point. But we mitigate that risk through stop-loss coverage, individual and aggregate. And we'll talk through that here in a bit. And the other key piece or the other key component I wanted you to look at is the funding. Essentially, when you're funding this, the employer pays a monthly predetermined amount on a fully insured plan. So again, those are our rates. It fluctuates a little bit by enrollment by each month, you know, depending how many people are still on the county or in BISC left or anybody that's been newly hired. Those fluctuate a little bit, but that funding is predetermined for that contract period. In self-funding, you are assuming some of that risk because it varies in from a month-to-month basis. Now, you can design a self-insured plan to look like a fully insured plan in rates. So it's called level funding to some degree. One of the terms that can be used, but you're funding it to the maximum risk, and so you can make that look very comparable to a fully insured plan. What are the pros and the cons between fully insured and self-funding? Pros, fully insured, ease of administration. Less aspects of the administration side of it that you have to worry about, right? More so on self-funded, you do. Predictable cost, decreased financial risk, those are some of the aspects that benefits you receive on a fully insured plan. Where you lose some of that flexibility is in terms of the plan design, because you can start designing your own, depending on how you want to tailor your benefit plan and design in the consumption of it. Networks, profits, as we'll go into another chart after this, you'll see the difference is that you're missing out on any of those claims reserves that are not being used, which are being taken on the insurance carrier side in terms of profits. Cons, right, back down in here, the insurance company typically retains the profits, right? They're not typically passing their profits back to you. Cons on the self-insurance side, we talked about increased financial risk. Monthly costs are not predictable, right? So you're going to have fluctuations in claims. You start off the first of the year, your claims are going to be lower than, say, 3 months down the road when the utilization is picked up by that point. So there's the ebb and flows of the actual cash flow that has to go to fund the claims. So here is a bar graph, specifically the fully insured side. You have self-insured and self-funded. Self-insured with a carrier, like a Primera ASO plan. Self-insured unbundled, which we're focusing on. And then the fully insured side, which you have currently. So think of this bar as your total cost. What makes up in it? There's components to it from an insurance carrier. There has to be enough money to pay for the claims. There's mandated benefits that go in there. There's fixed cost pooling that you're paying for, which is like stop loss coverage. Those aspects come into that, and they're nicely packaged to you in a rate, right? On the unbundled side, you are controlling those aspects to some degree. Well, be it through a TPA utilization, that you're using what TPAs are best for you, the PPO, network, disease management, pharmacy plans or pharmacy utilization and plans strategies that you built around that. Stop loss premiums that you're shopping in the back end, and you're not stuck to what the carrier is providing and essentially what the carrier is going to offer you as their packaged plan. Where you really have the potential is the potential savings that can go back to the county and back to your funds. Add anything to that?
No, I hate that slide.
It's very confusing, but it's try to put them through.
It's not that it's confusing, it's the ACA has what's called medical loss ratio rules. The plan has to pay 80% if it's a small employer, or 85% if it's a large employer, 80%. Yeah, I don't want the public to hear that I hate my own slide. So claims has to be at least 80% for a group your size, and this kind of misrepresents that. Number two, all the claim bars are the same. Now, I've been doing this a long time. It doesn't mean I'm any good at it, but I do pay attention, and I can tell you that the same benefit plan on the same group of individuals for the same period of time, spending at the same providers, Trios, Lords, whatever. Under the unbundled, the claims go down because the TPA is not just hitting the pay button. The reason everyone likes Primera is because they hit the pay button. It's called pay and chase. If they did it wrong, they'll chase it down later. They're going to pay it. They don't want noise. They don't want your employees upset at all because it's not their money. It's your money. This doesn't represent, in my view, the true advantage of unbundled self-funding. Now, I'm biased. Okay, that's my world. But I have a problem with this because it correctly shows the components. When you're fully insured, you're renting a plan. It doesn't belong to you. It belongs to the insurance carrier. And in my view, it's more risky because at the end of the 12 months, they're going to adjust based on whatever you're costing plus all of those components. I don't get hung up on the profit component of it. It is in there, but the TPA has to make a profit. I mean, the stop loss has to make a profit. It's in the claims. And who is hitting the pay button? Are we paying them a flat per employee per month fee, like a TPA? Who's going to do your COBRA, consolidated billing, all kinds of stuff that a carrier can't or won't do for you. And it's very hard to represent it in a slide like this, but this is typically what you see from insurance brokers like Hub, who has a certain amount of agency with insurance carriers that they don't want to misrepresent, they don't want to upset. I don't care. I don't like health insurance companies, so that's why I don't particularly like this slide. Sorry.
Let's
Back
go back. Let's get into the self-funding strategies. Like how, back to the claims, controlling claims. Why don't you talk about that, Dan?
So self-funding isn't for everyone, but just about everyone is doing it. So in the state of Washington, you can self-fund with the approval from the state, and it comes through the Department of Risk Manager's Office, Shannon Stuber. There's a forms you have to fill out. You have to show that you are capable of producing reserves. You don't have to have them up front, but you have to have those plans, and it can look a little overwhelming if you've never seen it before. So my first self-funded public agency client in the state of Washington was the city of Yakima in 1997. So they're bigger, but they've been doing it forever. Lincoln County went self-funded. I did that one. I'm choosing, of course, the ones that I've done, which is not all the self-funded plans that are cities or municipals, but a lot. Lincoln County is smaller than you. They went self-funding from WICIF. They held their rates for 8 years. 8 years, no increase, because their claims never bumped above what the fully insured premium was that they were paying in the year 2011. However, they also didn't adjust their budget. They weren't doing the trend increases that Brandon started off this presentation with. They said it's easier to bargain when you don't have to change the contribution because you don't have to change the premium. So they went back into the PEB because they weren't able to hold enough reserves, and the state said you can't self-fund anymore. So it isn't for everyone, but even those that I'm familiar with that have done it and have done it successfully, the advantages are tremendous.
Mr. Chairman, just a quick, so what do you do, because I have a little experience there too, with the LEF one, law enforcement retirement one, where it's kind of more of a full Cadillac. I'm guessing some of those counties that you have had quite a few LEF one retirees, and I just always was trying to wrap my mind around how we went self-insured at another county that I worked at, and it worked out pretty well, but there was one LEF one retiree. If you could speak to that.
Okay, so there's LEF 1 and then there's LEF out. We're all LEF out. LEF 1 is law enforcement and firefighters hired before July 1st of 1976. Yeah, I think so. And it's cradle to grave, you're on the hook. So if I retire from Seattle and come over here and join your plan, now you've got me as a LEF 1 employee. Do you have any LEF 1 here?
We do. We have 4 members, but none of them are on
This plan, yeah.
Okay.
So it's clear.
So
Yeah.
when the city of Yakima, and again, this is public information, so I'm not sharing information that isn't public. City of Yakima, when they self-funded for the first time, they had 112 LEF 1 members out of a total of 800 employees, 830 or so. A huge component of it. You self-fund them and add the stop loss. You treat them just the same. Their benefits are different. They have nothing out of pocket. TPA can handle that. Insurance carriers love it because their margins are on your premium, and the higher your premium is, the better their margin is, okay? So LEF 1 is cradle to grave coverage. You include them in the plan. Now, here's what's important about LEF 1 is if you've got a bargaining unit that says, we like the Teamsters better. Okay, but you're taking your LEF 1 with you. Now, if it's only 1, 2, or 3, Teamsters might do that. But if you had a whole bunch, they're not going to take it. So one of the things that we can do in advising you, if you've got a bargaining unit that says, well, we want out, we want to go to our own plan, we can equip you with what it's going to look like to them on the other side. Been doing this a long time, okay? So LEF 1 is an issue, but whether you are financed through a fully insured contract, a level funded, or unbundled self-funding doesn't matter. You handle them the same.
No, I was more, if you came into any, that's what I always kind of, if you had 25 people in a jurisdiction, not that we have, and all of them start having problems, that could probably become, but with 4 that aren't part of the plan, that.
Correct. Exactly. Great question.
So up here are different strategies, funding strategies that you can use to help control the costs and claims, and specifically other, in your direct contracts with those vendors. That's the capability you have in becoming, when you go unbundled self-funding. And sometimes those are partnered with TPAs, sometimes you're going direct on their behalf. We help with that process. We vet those vendors for you, and we line them up and say, okay, this is what it's gonna look like towards the plan, and here's how we visualize it working.
Has Premera gone to war with any of your local hospitals yet?
I don't know.
Cadillac.
Luckily, I haven't been in the hospital.
Yeah.
Okay. So another, and again, there are disadvantages, but it's in the numbers. The numbers either make sense to self-fund or they don't. Everything else is manageable, easily. But the numbers tell the story. But if you are able to self-fund, one of the issues we run into now is network. So the Premera is a great network. Regents, Assurus Northwest, United Healthcare, Aetna, okay locally, but not as strong as the others. First Choice Health, great network. But the providers go to war at the end of their contracts because they want higher reimbursements, and the carriers and the networks don't want to pay it. And for the last 5 years, they involve your people in it. They'll take out newspaper ads. Premera is bad. Or, you know, and Premera will come in and say, well, we're doing our best to, you know, pay the outlandish reimbursements that they want. When you're self-funded, you can carve that facility out. We do it all the time. So if they go to war with your network, number one, we can direct contract with that facility. Okay, we go to them. We know how to do this. It's a single direct contract that allows it to be paid as if they're in network. Then they can fight with whatever network insurer they want, and it doesn't harm your people. Okay? Huge advantage under self-funding. One of the other advantages is telemedicine. You have more control over that, and we can talk all day about what you can do for preventive and wellness that has to do with telemedicine, which isn't as attractive to fully insured carriers because it's competing with the providers that are here in their own network. That's a topic for another day. Medical tourism isn't as big of an issue for you. That's much bigger for Alaska, for example. We do a lot of that there. Pharmacy optimization, we carve out your pharmacy. Every broker that you talk to is going to come in and say, we can save you 30%. I think the market now says 35% if you do our pharmacy program. We're all about the pharmacy right now because that's where the increases are coming from. What used to be spent on medical has been gradually moving towards pharmacy. We can talk about GLP-1, Ozempic some other time as well. Dialysis management is another key that I see in cities and counties, particularly because in cities and counties, you don't have the same turnover that you get in private business. You tend to have people that if you're covering them now, you're going to be covering them 5 and 10 years from now at a greater percentage that you would other businesses, particularly smaller businesses where an ICHRA could be a very good fit. So dialysis management is kidney, end-stage renal disease, huge savings in there if you've got anyone that is on dialysis because of things that we can talk about that the providers in that space charge upwards of 400, sometimes 800% of Medicare. So we address that separately under self-funding. We can't do it under fully insured. Those claims get thrown into your premiums, and then Brandon's got to negotiate what the renewal is going to be with those claims intact in your fully insured plan. On-site clinics. You've got other municipal and county entities around here that on your own, it won't pencil out to have your own on-site clinic, but you could have a shared one. So we do this in Yakima is probably the closest example. They've got their own clinic. So rather than promote wellness that just sends people out into doctor's offices at full retail, you have your own clinic, and then your wellness programs become substantially more effective, and you can recruit and retain based on the fact that you're offering medical care. It doesn't even need to be on-site, but near-site. You can do that under self-funding. You can't under fully insured. Then reference-based pricing is an extreme example of, rather than reimburse at a discount off a rate charged by a provider, it's a percentage of Medicare. So in the self-funded space, sometimes you'll hear, oh, it didn't work because providers wouldn't take it. Well, those are plans that are using reference-based pricing. You're not going to use that here. Your claims would have to be double what they are now before we would be introducing that as a concept for you. So self-funding means a lot of things. It looks like a lot of moving parts, but again, in my biased opinion, you're a prime candidate to self-fund.
I was just going to add to that on that dialysis management, we were talking about end-stage renal, a carve-out plan that was put in place that we just recently with an employer saved the plan over $1.1 million. That's the control you do not have if somebody's in end-stage renal treatment on your fully insured plan. I mean, he's talking about I have to negotiate that. There's nothing we can do about that. On the carve-out plan, that's what was in place. That's what saved that employer, $1.1 million.
That's also public information. That's Grant County.
Yep.
So we can provide the exact numbers on that, how it was done, the vendor that we used to do that. We can, if it was a private client, I can't share that information with you, but I will ask Grant County if, in fact, we've already asked them if we could share how we did that for them.
Okay. We spent a lot of time just talking about carving out, but just another slide again, that's stop loss, ESRD, surgery centers, diabetes, taking more control back in your hands. So how do we mitigate the loss of big claims, large claims, right? How do we mitigate it? So there's two forms. There's individual stop loss. I'm sure you've heard some of this, some maybe haven't. If not, this is new. Individual stop loss, think about it as a belly button. You're protecting about that belly button claim, the claim exceeding, let's say it's $1 million cancer case. You have an individual deductible set up for that person that the plan pays, that the county pays, and you're responsible for the first portion of that deductible, say it's $140,000 or $150,000, whatever we set it up. After that point, the stop loss carrier kicks in and covers the rest of the claim. So I've got a chart after this that'll kind of show that example. And there's aggregate stop loss where you have belly buttons, not the belly button, the belly buttons for the whole plan, right? You may have multiple people that never hit their individual stop loss, but they're using their insurance quite a bit. Well, you have a stop loss aggregate set up there that protects you from excessive claims. So we'll go through those here quickly. So here's an example of individual stop loss. So say we set up the individual stop loss deductible at $140,000 for the county. This individual, John Doe, had over $230,000 in claims. I think our largest claimant last year was $272,000 pharmacy claim. So in this case, $140,000 was set up on the deductible. The plan pays, the county pays, county plan pays for the first $140,000. The individual stop loss kicks in after that point to cover the full $230,000 in claims. County covers the first $140,000, the next $90,000 was covered by the stop loss carrier. That's the way you mitigate that risk.
And that was good. $140,000, that's your internal pooling point on your current Premera plan. So if you were self-funded under your current contract, which you're not, Premera includes in your merit rating your claims that he's got to negotiate. Actually, Jamie does all the work. He just takes the credit. If you get a killer renewal, he'll have Jamie present it. If it's good,
I won't be here. No.
Your internal pooling point with Premera is $140,000. So your current premiums are based on a underwriting standard using $140,000. So if we're gonna present self-funding to you, we're gonna make sure that 140,000 is the correct stop-loss deductible.
And that's what we have represented here later.
That's nicely done.
Yep, and then the aggregate stop loss, the belly buttons, right? So when underwriters are looking at this, and the fully insured underwriter, for instance, on the Primera side, is gonna provide that rate, their health runners on their side of it, saying, we expect claims for the county to be at 2 million for this contract. That's exactly what this scenario is set up as. So we're expecting total claims throughout the year to be about $2 million. Well, what if we exceed that? You know, we can't, you know, the unpredictability of people's health, right? Something happens, some major issue, somebody comes on that's very, very sick. You have all those claims that come up, but also let's say we have just high utilization that year, right? So after the expected claims are exceeded, you have what you're responsible for the next 20%, which is $400,000. After that point, that's your max claims limit. So the aggregate stop loss kicks in, and every claim above that point is paid by the aggregate stop loss. So again, we're talking about the financial risk and how we mitigate it. This is for all the belly buttons. And when we go back and we give you a fully insured equivalent rate and figure all this stuff out, this is all built in to the quote and the rates that are set forth, depending on how you set it up. Anything else you want to add to that?
Your employees don't care about any of this.
Yeah.
They care about schedule of benefits and how much you're gonna payroll deduct, and are you gonna touch my VBA to help pay for it? That's what they care about. They don't care how it's financed. You do, because it gives you more control, and if the numbers look good, it gives you the opportunity to spend less on your health care. But all of this detail, self-funded 101, your employees don't need to even know.
Yeah.
They don't care.
So what we have here, this is basically an analysis of self-funding versus fully insured. This is based on a real quote. So when I told you about where I started the feasibility analysis, which we'll talk about in a second, this is what this is based off of. And we looked at max funding it, right? So like an insurance carrier would do. So that's all built in the quote assumptions here. So on your 2025 fully insured budget, so currently right now at 218 employees, that's what we currently had on the plan as of end of February. You're looking at about an annual cost of about $2.75 million. So that's if you're looking at a 12-month period, same enrollment, same factors all apply. 2026, when we come to renew next year, let's say medical trend does hit and you have an 8.5% increase, the national trend. That would put the budget at about $3 million. That makes sense? 2025, 2026. So how do we compare it currently? So for stop loss premiums, individual stop loss and aggregate stop loss, we have a stop loss carrier that just quoted that the annual cost for that would be around $484,000. That includes your individual and aggregate and funded at the max 120%. The administration fees would be around $15,000 or $181,000 total. Your expected claims, what we expect the claims to be for the county, would be around $2 million. Okay. Combine all those together and you get a plan that's about $2.5 million, right? The savings based off of that from what you're in 2026 would be around $433,000 to the county. Now, what if the worst case scenario happens? We do hit, which is unlikely, but we do, all the belly buttons, high utilizers, we're not having a lot of individual stop loss claims, we hit the max funding amount. That would be about $247,000. Instead of the $200,000, it actually breaks even. So it's like $100 more. That's what I calculated it as, if you add up the numbers.
It's the only reason I'm here.
So what I'm trying to say is even in a worst case extreme scenario, you would still be on par with what your renewal is going to be potentially with Primera. I mean, assuming I can negotiate it better, we'll have to see. We don't know what the claims are going to be the next few months from now, right? We can't predict those things. But if you look at the snapshot at this current time, the numbers bear out. I mean, they make complete sense.
And here's where my involvement was in the past for you, and I've been in the background. I don't let the CPA out of the office all the time. is how did he get your Primera renewal pounded down to 3%? It's because we're showing him what self-funding can do. We're not telling Primera you're going to self-fund or even that you've looked at it. It's like, this group is large enough to self-fund. They know who we are, and they know that we don't have a whole lot of groups, 300 plus, that aren't already self-funded. And that's how that gets negotiated down. So even if you do not self-fund, we're using it. It's a tool. The stop-loss market is brutally competitive. The health insurance market is not. So we have to take advantage of self-funding, even if you aren't going to self-fund. And the reason, one of the main reasons you wouldn't self-fund is you're going to take a risk, meaning the worst-case scenario, which would be all 218 plus their dependents have 139,999 claims, meaning it's all under that $140,000 deductible. Then the aggregate, you're going to hit it. So I've got about 1,400 self-funded renewals under my belt. That's the number of years, about 30 times the number of clients, all in the Northwest. 2 in California, but don't blame me for that. I've had 3 hit the aggregate. What that means is that when the stop-loss insurers predict what your maximum liability is, they know that the odds are pretty rare that you're going to hit it. But we have to show it to you as a county to get the state to bless you to self-funding. You have to fund to the maximum. But under self-funding, you're not paying a premium. You're booking a premium equivalent. Okay? The money stays with you and you pay as you go, and at the end of the year, if you pay less than those premiums, it's your money. It's not the insurers. It's not ours. It's not the TPAs. That would be the reason to self-fund. So what we're looking at here is, in essence, a no-brainer. Your worst-case scenario is the transition to self-funding causes her to quit because there's a lot to do in a transition. Okay, but the numbers you can't lose. That's pretty rare for a county, but this is an example of what may be available to you. The reasons you wouldn't be able to self-fund is you've got a bargaining unit that just says, no way, we won't join it, and we'll have to show them that most of their cities and counties are already self-funded. Even the PEB is self-funded. It just looks fully insured to those employers that are enrolled in it. And the savings then, we're not dangling that in front of your bargaining groups as, well, now they can negotiate for that money because it's an unknown. You don't know what it's going to be. Also, if you pop a large claim, like a really big one between now and when the stop loss is fixed, that might prevent you from self-funding at that time. You might have to wait until that claim. So there are some downsides to it, but the numbers look really good.
Any questions on, I know we're just throwing this at you at the moment, but essentially the analysis on how we're presenting this, or specifically the difference in savings? So, almost done here. We're gonna talk about the next steps. So we can take down, and I'll see this up here, but two parallel paths. Going down self-funding, and know what we know right now with what we have with Primera and the fully insured approach that we currently do. I get that there's the whole bargaining aspect that still has to be resolved. But regardless, we can go down both paths, right? And that's what we'll do. So we've taken those initial steps right now. I don't know if you want to just quickly touch base on the claims review, how that kind of works at the state. But the key piece here is we have to begin the application process with the Washington State Department of Enterprise Services. And that's a process, that, and like you said, to the state, it has to be approved for us to go self-funding. As well as HUB is kicked off with our analytics team, we will provide a self-insurance feasibility, a SIFA, that will go with it and pair with it.
What we're looking at is your large claim report. Primera does their own risk analysis. We do ours to make sure you're not walking into large claims that we don't anticipate going higher. We need more data on the large claims, because what we want to do is say, okay, the numbers are a no-brainer, but I'm more interested in year 2. Okay? Year 2 is what counts, and we don't want you walking into a plan that looks good in the first year, and in the second year, you're right back to where you started from. So that's why we need the self-funding analysis to be completed.
And then on the expected reserve, so that, what the state requires is 16, how would you explain that, 16 weeks of reserve to be available, or you can show you can be available?
It's WAC 200-110 gives all the stipulations on what is required to self-fund in the state of Washington. The advantage to you is the state is the fiduciary, not you. You're technically not an ERISA self-funded plan. You're a self-funded plan, should you do this, that is approved by the state of Washington, and you do an annual audit, which takes about 20 minutes to do online. There are some stipulations. The big one for you is the reserve. You don't have, or if you do have 675,000 around, it's probably going into a VEBA. Sorry, but that is my biggest concern, is that if you're, whether you self-fund, fully insured, we need to slow down, if not stop, the adverse selection for paying people to waive. That's goal number one. Goal number two is to get you in the right type of plan that gives you the ability to control things in a way that you don't have to control now. The reserves, you have to have a plan on how you would build up to that. You don't start off self-funding with it fully reserved. The state of Washington does not require that. Thus endeth the speech on reserves.
So anyways, we just put together a schedule. We need to finish, right, our aspect is the self-insurance feasibility analysis and getting that back to you. At that time, we request the authorization from the county to proceed forward with the self-funding application. Again, going down two parallel paths, right? Doesn't mean we have to end there, but be prepared and take the steps necessary so that we can be self-funded by January 1st, and part of the renewal process that we're doing right now. So just going forward, and that's why I had those dates in red. The idea is if we can do that in April, that you would hopefully have an application approval in July from the state.
And only one parting request. You need to talk with other brokers, get different ideas, different programs. Don't have any of us go out to market all at once. Okay? Choose your broker. If it's going to be us, we're doing the work and we'll continue to do the work. We serve at your pleasure. And we know that. We know who we work for. Other brokers are going to come with new ideas, different programs. Choose the broker that you want to work with and have them do the work. Don't go to trial with different attorneys and then choose the one that, you know, the mock trial worked out best. That makes it hard for us, it makes it hard for you, and it makes it hard for the carriers. So even Premera will halt to a crawl, and we're not able to negotiate in the same way if there's multiple brokers feeding them the same data. So choose the broker and then turn them loose. We hope it's us. If it's somebody else, don't have us continue doing the self-funding stuff. Don't have us go to market because it's going to get in their way.
Can you help me better understand that? I work in the contracting world, and that's what you do is, I mean, for lack of a better way of describing it, you pit people against each other to see what the market says is where you're going to get the best deal. So help me better understand why you would not do that.
Okay. So the industry is a little different than contractors. Hub does a lot of contractors. It's more akin to having multiple CPAs do your tax return, and then you choose the one that comes up with the lowest number. Your incentive, you just told us the lowest number wins. So you're not going to attract the best CPAs to quote on that.
I don't believe that that's what I said. I believe we're looking for the best value, and I'm trying to understand why we would not ask everybody to make a proposal to us.
Have the proposal be for broker services. What I'm suggesting is that if you turn multiple brokers loose on Premera at the same time, Premera is not going to give you the best quote through any of them. What they're going to try and do is equate them, and then the brokers will come in, us included, and change things. And there's a lot of things that we can change that will change a rate. So if you've looked at a Premera renewal or a Regents renewal or a Kaiser, there's pages and pages of plan options, for example. So we're going to choose a different plan option. You got to figure out what the difference is and whether it's due to broker skill or just choice of a different program. The other thing that it does is you're not going to get all the same, you're not going to get the best competitors of ours if you're out to bid through multiple brokers. Does that make sense?
Not really yet.
Okay, and the
I didn't
contractor
mean
world-
that, I didn't mean that contractors as in that's all that I work with, but, you know, architects and engineers and all that kind of thing, you go out and ask for a proposal and you deliberately, I guess, pit them against each other and say, who is going to give me the best, you know, option, the best value. And so I guess that's what the part that I'm trying to understand is why you wouldn't do that. So I guess what I'm understanding you say is pit the brokers against each other, start with that level.
Yep.
And then once you select your broker, then go to the market.
Correct.
I understand that.
Strategy.
Right. Pick the broker on resources, fit, compatibility, accessibility, but Primera is Primera, and we're all gonna have our stories. Well, we're bigger, so we have more negotiating power. Well, we're smaller, so we're more nimble. I mean, whatever it is that appeals to you and makes sense and is a fit for you at the broker side.
Yeah, I understand better now what you're explaining.
It used to be you could create differences from the broker side because commissions and fees could be hidden. That's no longer the case. Brokers cannot hide that stuff. So we can't come in and say ours is 5% less because we're a better broker, you know, taking it out of fees and commissions and putting it back in year 2. Those practices are all gone.
So you don't do like the car manufacturers, and if you sell 400 cars, then you get a $7 million kickback.
And if we did, it's all disclosed. You're not subject to what's called the Form 5500, but we have to report to the state every penny that you spend out of that health plan, including to us. So the market doesn't allow for those differences anymore. They're rare. If brokers are going to be compensated differently and hide it from you, they're going to do it through a PBM agreement, and we can discuss that later.
All right, is there any other questions? We really appreciate the presentation and the option there.
Thank you for your time.
Yeah, we'll continue forward with the study and look forward to hearing from you.
Yeah, we're not done with this yet, so you're gonna hear from us.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
Alrighty, so at this point in time, we have public comment. Is there anybody, no? Did you want to say something?
I did. I just wanted to let you know that, next week we'll have another one of these. You'll have 2 other brokers you'll hear from. One of them cannot be here till noon, so I'm hoping that's not an issue, but there's a few other workshops. But anyway, next week you'll have 2 more brokers here.
And next week, the 2 are?
Alliant and Marsh McGlennon.
Okay.
And Alliant is the one who cannot be here until noon. So just a heads up on that.
Thank you.
Yep.
Okay, so public comment. Anybody for public comment?
I hate to bug you guys, I really do, but I was health insurance for Mutual of Omaha for a number of years, Sure Commission, and watched the healthcare and health insurance field fall. I also had a husband that was a doctor, worked in his office, and with Blue Cross, we'd have to do health neck strain, and with AmeriCare, we'd have to do neck sprain to get paid for the same initial, complaint. There's a marvelous book called Who Killed Healthcare? In fact, she wrote 2 of them by Herzog. And this gentleman just confirmed that he read it, and by the way he was talking, I knew he was right. I'm a big fan of self-insured. My husband's former employer, who is also Left One, and they do Left One through the city here, and he's on that board. Left One, they don't, firemen and police officers don't take Social Security under Left One. Then Left Two, they do. And that has been a big issue at the state level. I'm digressing, but basically it's overfunded, and it should roll down the road into the Left Out so that Left 2 becomes fully funded. But all of their long-term care costs, everything comes out of that. So with Power City, we were self-insured, and I could go across state lines to a doctor practicing in their scope as a healthcare doctor, and I could get supplements rather than pharmaceuticals that caused all kinds of side effects. And currently, I'm under a health share co-op. So you and your wife, being a member of a congregation, can go and apply to Samaritan Ministries. And my current premium is about $380. So when I had my massive tumor in the middle of things a couple years ago, that cost me $700. Everything else was paid for. And so there's a lot of ways to look at healthcare, but I'm a big fan of self-insured because it does provide employees with an incentive to keep costs down and to be more responsible. And that's a big key in any, even if you're fully insured, it's a big key component in how they use healthcare. They tried to do referrals for a while and that didn't work. So I can tell you that we had a Cadillac plan eventually because they had it long enough. They had a big reserve that they offer. Our deductible was $300 per person, or $380, I think it was, per person right up until a few years ago. And so there are plans that work really, really well, and I hope that you look further into it. I would encourage it. I think it would save the county a lot of money. It'd bring the employees the health care they need, and you could control the costs with the individual pulls and push-me, pull-yous in that plan. Thank you.
Thank you. And there's nobody else for public comment, nobody on the phone. So at this time, I will adjourn the workshop.
May I?
Yes, sir.